in case you hear, like, noises, the kitten is down here with me, and I sometimes she's very loud. So, I know what date I'm uploading this on, but this is not a joke. I actually did this. This is, for all intents and purposes, an April Fool's Day video, though. After the catastrophe that still haunts me to this day of, haha, what if Game Theory tried to analyze the lore in the Jackbox series that every single person who watched took seriously, including the voice of the Trivia Murder Party killer and one of the writers for Jackbox. Granted, I don't know for sure if it's really him, but just the possibility that he might have watched this fills me with an extreme feeling of dread. So yeah, no, I'm never going to try and be funny on the internet ever again. I much prefer last year's video, which is still horribly cringy, but instead of being a straight up joke, it's just me running with some weird ass idea. That was fun. Let's continue doing that. This year's video was inspired by my cousin, Joanna, who is basically the channel mascot at this point. She gets brought up so much. So if you watched that over 3-hour masterpiece I put out last Halloween, you might remember that I played Resident Evil 8 at Joanna's house. And after we finished, we played Resident Evil 7. What I don't think I mentioned is that she was very insistent that we play it in VR because she wanted to see me get scared and freak out. Here's how that worked out.
Sorry! Oh, this is fun. That was neat. Okay, this is hot.
Actually, I only made it until just after the dinner scene because the VR was making me sick.
This is a little bit disorienting right now. I don't know why this is and not like Mia chasing me down, but this is a little disorienting.
So we played it normally after that, but there was still a solid hour or so where this was being played on the VR, but not necessarily by me. Joanna had brought home a pizza, and I was taking my sweet time eating, and she got impatient, so she popped the headset on and started it herself. The problem was that while I have a pretty high tolerance for jump scares, Joanna does not. I told you not to go in the house! And she was petrified that something was going to jump up in front of her. So her solution was to not let anything jump up in front of her.
Hold on, we're gonna go backwards.
Why?
Because, like, if something pops up, I won't see it.
If it pops up, it's gonna pop up in the other direction and then you'll die because you can't defend yourself in time. What do you think? Why do you think this is a better option?
You think anyone has done this game backwards?
Eventually, I finished eating and took over, but the thought did haunt me. Has anyone ever done a backwards run? Has a single person out there ever just said to themselves, oh, I'm going to play the entirety of RE7 walking backwards?
I'm going up the stairs backwards. Wait, hold on. There we go. Great stuff.
I don't think so. I haven't been able to find anyone who has ever done it, and I was determined to give it a try, especially after I mentioned to Joanna that I was thinking of trying it, and she told me I couldn't do it. Then I was absolutely going to do it. Every action I did while replaying this game over and over again was for the sole benefit of completing the backwards run. Well, that and gathering footage for the real Resident Evil 7 video I'm currently working on. Like, this isn't it. Like, there's gonna be another one. I played Madhouse difficulty, which is not only the hardest difficulty, but also a slightly retooled version of the game where enemies appear in different spots. Entirely because I heard that if I beat it, I get infinite ammo. And also because Joanna said I couldn't do it. And, well, I did it. Fuck you, Joanna. Yeah, so I beat Madhouse, I got the infinite ammo. I also did a speed run to get the circular saw. And I did a run to get all the bobbleheads, to get the walking shoes, which helps you walk faster. So I was all ready to go. I had all my supplies. But then I realized this is essentially an experiment, right? An experiment to see if one can survive Resident Evil 7 by traversing in a way that the developers never expected. And if the results of the experiment end up boiling down to, yes, I did it, but also I had all these items that made the game easier, well, then that's kind of lame. I wanted a real, legit answer. Could a person beat Resident Evil 7 walking backwards under completely normal circumstances? So I ditched my Albert gun, my walking shoes, my beloved infinite ammo, and I set out with nothing but the items available in the game itself. And boy, that was a decision I regretted fast. Like, okay, infinite ammo has a very obvious benefit to this kind of run, right? If you're walking backwards, you aren't able to run away from enemies, so you have to fight every single one you come across. And that is much less daunting if you are guaranteed to always have your guns loaded and ready to defend you. However, another thing to keep in mind is that infinite ammo also makes it so you don't have to go looking for ammo, or the materials you need to craft it at least. And this is a big deal when you move like a motherfucking turtle and having to go into and carefully search every room suddenly becomes the most tedious thing in existence. Does it help either that they give you this teeny tiny little inventory and expect you to make frequent trips to the box to store all your supplies? Do you have any idea how much time these trips to the box take when you're moving slower than a fucking snail? And it sucks too, because like I mentioned before, I've done speedruns of this game, and oh my god, this is the exact opposite of a speedrun. So the instinct to just sprint to the next thing is still ingrained in me. I started off streaming this game, and during this part in the old house, I accidentally ran forward for like 10 seconds.
Just went in. That was weird. Oh god, I just went forward, shit.
I decided to be forgiving to myself if I took a step forward or two out of habit, but this was too many steps. So I started over off stream, and I didn't stream the rest of it because my PlayStation stopped connecting to the internet. And I did better the second time. The only time I kind of fucked up was right here in Lucas's barn. I was trying to skirt around to take care of this molded while avoiding the ones coming from up ahead, and I did this little awkward sidestep for a few seconds. I wasn't going forward, so I decided not to count this as a fail, but I wasn't going backwards either, so I dropped a letter grade. Because this run requires so much turning around to see what's going on all around you, you do end up accidentally going sideways for a few steps quite a bit, but I did eventually get into the habit of avoiding that. Except here, obviously. But honestly, as tedious as the walking speed is, it was surprisingly not the most frustrating part. Now, I've played the game probably like 20 times now, and I would suggest playing the game that many times before attempting something like this, because I cannot even imagine how this would have gone if I had absolutely no idea where I was going or where anything was. I was constantly backing into walls, hitting corners, walking past items because I thought they were farther down, or because I just straight up couldn't see them. The beginning outdoor segment is the worst. It's a short path, but it's shaped in just the perfect way that I kept backing into plants and rocks and not being able to move.
It didn't even occur to me that I would like be like backing into stuff and not being able to figure out which way to go like that. I thought the problem was gonna be that like I was gonna be going slow and it was gonna be annoying. This is terrible.
Fortunately, it got easier once we got indoors, but the inside parts actually offer a new problem. Doorways. I just have so much footage of me trying to line myself up so I could actually get through the doors without backing into the walls. Those doors at the old house that lead from the save room to the spider shadow room always gave me trouble for whatever reason. I kept just completely missing them despite how big of a doorway it was. Kept thinking they were closer to the save room than they actually were, I guess. But otherwise, the beginning of the game didn't give me too much trouble. I decided to do the tape in the guest house just to get the antique coin, and that was easy enough. I did realize here, though, a couple of things. One was that the lockpick on the ground was literally just behind you. I did not realize that before, and always end up searching the whole ground for it.
Oh, it was just right behind me. Great.
That was 2 fucking years ago.
I thought I was gonna have like a nervous breakdown because I couldn't find the lockpick. I didn't realize the lockpick was right behind me that whole time. For some reason I thought it was like hidden.
Whoops. Second is that you couldn't back into ladders. If you wanted to use a ladder, you'd have to take a step forward. So, backwards run failed here. Technically. But it's a mandatory step forward, so you can't avoid it. Also, once you get to the bottom of the ladder, even though you aren't looking at Andre Blair witching in the corner over there, the game will still whip you around so you can be properly spooked. That was actually a question I had going into this. Almost every single scare happens in front of you, and even most of the enemies who ambush you come from the front. So walking backwards is actually the riskier move, something we'll get into later when I start to deal more with the combat. And while there is some fighting in the opening of the game, most of the scary moments come from a character jumping up in front of or falling directly into your face. These are scripted events, and I couldn't help but wonder how the game would handle me not looking in the direction I need to for these scares to play out. And the answer is, they literally whip you around so you get to experience them. Which is pretty hilarious, but it is arguably scarier than them just popping up, since losing control of the game and being forced to turn quickly does kind of make the experience more startling.
I wonder if he still has that at 8. Like if they just...
We gotta get the fuck out of here.
Now first you need to tell me what you're doing out here alone.
I forgot he was just gonna whip around like that. That surprised me.
So you back into the water, slowly start drifting towards where you need to go, hit a corner, so you have to reposition yourself. This happens a lot in this run. Another thing that breaks the backwards run here is when Ethan has to push himself under these wooden beams. You have to go forward to trigger this action. Also, we get jump scared again. But this time, not by being whipped around, they just have Andre's corpse pop up where we happen to be looking. And, you know, I have to say in favor of this run, it did kind of make me appreciate the atmosphere a bit more than I did before. I don't think I ever really noticed the water reflecting onto the wall here, but I had plenty of time to look at it this time around, and it looks very nice. Same thing with a lot of the outdoor environments. Very nice. So yeah, you know the plot. Ethan finds Mia, frees her, follows her through the basement. Again, here is a part where you have to move forward. Any point in the game where you have to slide through a thin gap requires a forward motion to enter. I'm not going to mention it every single time because you actually have to do this a lot, but yeah, just keep that in mind. I managed to trigger Mia popping up in front of me by backing into her feet, so that's good. I tried to do the same thing with the axe too. I wanted to back over to the axe to pick it up, but unfortunately, the second you try to move, the game just sends Ethan rushing forward to get the axe. So that's another strike, I suppose. I just played defensively here, letting Mia rush at me, and I would attack when she got close. Took some damage, but I beat her quickly enough and I didn't have to walk forward to do it. When you get the fuse and start heading back to the breaker box, there is actually supposed to be a little spook, where you see undead Mia walking by in the distance, similar to an earlier scare where we see Jack walking by in the forest. I missed both of these moments because I was walking backwards. Okay, so maybe Joanna did have the right idea in some respect. You do miss a couple of creepy moments, at least until the game whips you around again, so Mia can slice your hand off. And off you go to the first boss battle in the game. Now might be a good time to mention I'm playing this on easy. Hey, I said beating the game under normal circumstances. Easy mode is normal circumstances. So she wasn't too hard of a fight, you know, because I was playing it on easy. I got battered for sure, but I just kept unloading into her and eventually she dropped dead. I tried to give her a smooch, but then Jack interrupted me.
Welcome to the family, son.
And okay, here's the reason I chose to do this on easy. I was honestly unsure if the part where Jack chases you through the halls would be possible during the backwards run. And I remember how fast he went in Madhouse. I can't really say how fast he goes in the normal difficulty, because I don't remember, but I assume it was faster than he does in easy. And oh god, I barely escaped with my life in easy. He actually killed me both times I did this. He did the thing where he chopped off my leg and put some healing stuff down so I could glue it back on, and I tried to back myself over there to get it, but alas, I bled to death before I could.
Jack! I can't move forward, Jack! Okay, this is kind of funny. Okay. We're fading. Okay. Yeah, I know. Okay. Well, there's my leg. Okay. I can't do it.
Yeah, it was a shit show. In my final run, I actually only died twice. Wait till you see the second time, you're going to love it. But oh my god, let me tell you, this part becomes 1,000 times more stressful when you're playing it backwards, and Jack is just like sauntering his way over to you, and you can't run away or defend yourself. Just watching him get closer and closer while you're pitifully inching backwards is so painful. I tried to be stealthy, but of course he saw me, and then I tried to do something clever and lure him over to the table, because he'll smash it if you go near it.
Miss me?
This will usually save you a few seconds to get away, but like, I needed a lot more than a few seconds. Also, I got stuck on the corners, so he caught up with me in no time. For some reason, when I was doing this section on stream, he just kinda like forgot about me.
Why, he didn't follow me in here? What? I mean, good, but what?
That was weird, and it never happened again. Every other time it was a huge disaster, but miraculously, I finally managed to escape. I had to turn myself around to get out of the hole, and also to trigger the conversation with the cop. Also, it's kind of funny, just him impatiently yelling at me to come over, while I'm slowly backing my way over to him.
Open up. Hey, you!
Then, once I'm down in the garage, I am forcibly whipped around to watch this cutscene. Now, this did bring up the question, does the backwards run also apply to driving the car? And the answer is, of course it does. Ethan is only physically capable of moving backwards, and so he has to drive backwards too. I know he was driving normally in the beginning, but what can I say? Sometimes miracles happen. So on the stream, my plan was to get in the car and just try to back into Jack.
Hang on. We're gonna do like an 8-point turn, and we're gonna try to hit it backwards. We're gonna try to hit it backwards.
Couldn't quite get it to work.
I can't do it. Okay, well. Okay, I'm gonna keep trying. Like, I can't do it.
So I ended up just sitting there until Jack got annoyed and took over the car. My second time, I was planning on just getting into the car and sitting there, but Jack actually caught me and threw me out. So I just shot him and he exploded. Yeah, that worked out nicely. I went into the main hall and realized that speaking to Zoe was much, much more difficult in this run. So that's fun. While going around looking for supplies, I decided to do the Mia tape. I wasn't going to. I honest to God did not think it was possible, especially when I started off and Marguerite was right on my ass. Well, my front, technically. My ass was facing the other direction. But shockingly enough, I did it. I was sure she was gonna catch me during this part because I honestly thought that you had to run to this hole in the floor. But no, you can just take your sweet time with no consequences. Got to even hear a line I never heard before.
You think little Evie's gonna put up with your shit forever, bitch?
Which was pretty neat. Also, yes, Mia has caught whatever Ethan has that makes him move backwards. Clancy too. What can I say? It's very contagious. After this, I picked up the object from the bathtub, triggering Daddy Jack into squeezing Ethan's asparagus, and then I was forced to flee, which didn't really work super well. He was coming faster than I liked, and I kept getting stuck on the bathtub, and the door frame, and the corner. Seriously, I don't think I could stress how terrifying it is walking backwards and having to watch an enemy come up on you. Like, this is a very stressful experience. And this is the third time I did it. So, I sought him, took a lot of shots to finally get him down. We traveled through like half the house before he finally went down. Had to knock him out anyways, since the game doesn't let you do the shadow puzzle if he's right on your ass. So the basement was going to be a time, I knew that. The first molded encounter is actually just right before the basement, and shockingly enough, I completely avoided it. Yeah, so you can just run past this guy. Now obviously I couldn't do that, but shockingly enough, he takes so long to start coming after you that I was able to get into the hall and close the door. That's a fun trick with the molded. They can't open doors. This trick definitely saved my ass a time or two during this run. Travis in the basement, for example. This is the first time you encounter a hooked molded, and since at this point all you have is a knife and a handgun, he is pretty hard to take out.
Come on, I just used 2 heals on this. I just used 2 heals on this. I just used 2 heals on that. I only have 1 left and I only have 3 bullets left. I'm fucked.
But if you open the drawer he stuffed in, back out of the room, and slam the door, he literally despawns, and you could go back in and get the key. I actually made the executive decision to go get the steroid hidden in the wall at this point, because I knew I was gonna need it. The boiler room is a pain in the ass because there are just so many moldeds hounding you all at once, but once you get past that, there is a much worse experience. Alright, so, the Jack chainsaw fight. Here's the problem. This is a very active fight that requires you to rush up on Jack and slice him up, but it's really hard to do that going backwards. So my original strategy was to just keep as much distance as possible, block what I needed to, and get in as many hits as I could whenever he got close. So basically, just play defensively. But God, he was just never anywhere close to me when I did that. Multiple minutes were going by with neither one of us ever hitting each other, and I was like, oh God, this is never going to end. So I stopped trying to avoid him and let him come to me, and attempted to skirt around and dodge his attacks while hitting him at the same time, but I kinda suck. And obviously moving backwards makes everything super awkward, so it rarely ever worked like I wanted it to. I went into this fight with 6 heals, and then there was a 7th hit in the corner, and I used every single one of them. And this was with the steroid too. I made it out of this thing by the skin of my teeth. Both times. This happened both times. I never figured out a more efficient way to do this. And if I did take a few steps forward anywhere, it was probably here. I was trying really hard not to, but you do kind of have to lunge with the chainsaw. I did try to just take him out with bullets at one point, but it wasn't super effective, and I didn't want to deplete my supplies, so I just kind of went back to this awkward mess. God, I missed the circular saw. Anyways, after that whole catastrophe, I went outside and got the repair kit hidden under the deck. I fixed the shotgun first, so I didn't have to go through all that shotgun switcheroo bullshit, and just kinda dealt with the shitty handgun till I got to Lucas's barn later in the game. After combing the rest of the yard and buying another steroid with the antique coins I collected, I headed to the old house. Now this part is a pain in the ass at the best of times. Stupid bugs eating me alive. I tried to take advantage of Marguerite not being there yet, and gather as many items as humanly possible. I managed to replenish my supply of heals pretty quick, so that was good. I also created a burner just for this part. I hate the burner otherwise, but it's good for taking out the bugs. This was another part where I was whipped around for a jump scare. Actually, that happened twice.
I told you to stay out of here!
I also just completely backed into Marguerite at one point, so that was really, really fun. The two fighting bits in this section are the pit and then the actual boss battle. Pit was easy, just kind of stood there and shot at her, backing up every so often to get a better view. And I was even able to back over to the ladder before she turned to tar, so that was good. And the boss fights, which is arguably one of the most brutal in the entire game, wasn't even that bad. Did you know that you could just stand on the stairs and she can't jump on you? This wasn't something I came up with. I found it on YouTube a while ago, and I'll link the source below. This person didn't stay on the stairs the entire time, but they at least gave me the idea to try it. The idea is that while you're on the stairs, she can definitely injure you, but she can't do that horrible move where she jumps down from the ceiling and knocks out most of your health. And it was pretty easy to just back up and down the stairs as needed. The only shitty part of this strategy is that you can't stop her from giving birth to the bugs, so that's a thing you have to deal with, but that wasn't too bad of a hiccup. It's also a lot of waiting around for her to show up, but I use that to reload my weapons, so she never caught me unprepared. So that's Marguerite all set. Rest in peace, bestie. Next up, we get a bunch of sections of moldeds in the dark, and this kinda sucked. Okay, so seriously, I get lost on the top floor of the old house when I'm just playing normally, so I was sweating bullets going into this. I knew roughly where they all were. One was waiting just behind the door for you, which in theory I didn't think would be an issue, but then whoops, I only lightly tapped the door with my back so it creaked open and then shut again, so I had to keep backing into it, which meant I kept backing into the molded. Then I vaguely remembered that one fell from the ceiling. Okay, not too bad. But I couldn't for the life of me remember where the third one was. Usually I just sprint out of here and not even deal with him, but like totally not an option this time. Since everything spawns in front of where you are, I was basically taking 2 steps and then whipping around to make sure nothing was there. Till finally I found him, and then it was just your regular old shootout. Had to get the snake key next. I forgot how terrible these 4-legged little bastards are. I also forgot exactly where the first one crashed through the wall, so he pounced on me when I wasn't ready for him, and wow, yeah, fuck this guy. There were moldeds in the dissection room. I shot at the ones coming up the stairs, but I suck at aiming, so it just kind of took off his arm. So I backed as quickly as I could down to the snake key door as it shambled after me, and then stressfully unlocked the door and slammed it in his face. I then got mauled by another 4-legged molded. God, I hate these little bastards. This next part is pretty easy. These two are really far away and move slowly enough that you could just stand in one place and take them out. I went into the parents' room first to get the backpack and to get the last stretch of the basement combat over with. There was this buildup in the doorway over here, and then one came up behind me. It was a complete disaster, but I managed to avoid most of the damage and I took them all out. In the kids' room, I once again had to step forward to get on and off the ladder. I also decided not to do the happy birthday tape because we do essentially the same thing later, and I'd be able to see if it was possible there. And I didn't need the wooden shotgun since I already had the best shotgun I could get. But I did take the wooden axe so I could get the stabilizer hidden in the bushes. There was also more of the 4-legged fuck faces out here, so that was fun. So off we go to Lucas's area. I was super nervous about this one because Lucas put tripwires everywhere and I knew it would be super easy to just back into one. But since this is like my 20th time going through the game, I knew where they all were, so I took them out without incident. I did blow myself up later though, don't you worry. I went through a lot of bullshit to get the steroid and coin here. This part is also nestled in the middle of getting jumped by a 4-legged molded and getting surrounded by a bunch of other moldeds. Like I said earlier, I ended up accidentally doing this awkward little sidestep to try and skirt around them, and it didn't really work. I still got swarmed. Then there's the barn fight. I shot a narrow round into the elevator as it was coming down, and then positioned myself in the corner where its vomit couldn't reach me and shot enhanced ammo at it. I started to get frustrated when I ran out of enhanced ammo, so I also hit it with a flame round and it went down after that. Not much to say about the happy birthday section. I knew how to beat it already, so I went through the motions this time just walking backwards. The game also gives you plenty of time to get rid of the bomb, so nothing to worry about there. Now, the section here on the dock was one that I found myself appreciating the atmosphere of a lot. I don't know, I usually just run over these bridges without a thought, but the walking backwards aspect forced me to take it all in. The sound of the water and the creaking wood and the wind. Spent a lot of time looking at this lamp. Tried to take Shamu out over here with a knife in an attempt to conserve ammo, but it became increasingly clear that that wasn't really an option. I ended up wasting 2 heals on this guy.
I just used 2 heals on this.
2 moldeds came from the other bridge, and I had to take them out too. But then I saw more coming over in the distance, and I fucking fled. Or at least as much as one can flee, going backwards. I got ambushed by another 4-legged molded in my attempt to get away, but I shot it back into the sea. And then this regular molded came up behind me, so I had to shoot him too. And all while these 2 are slowly shambling closer and closer. Oh my god, it was so close. They were like right on my ass as I finally reached the safe room. I spent a lot of time organizing and making my supplies before heading upstairs. Ethan reacts like he's seen Mia, even though he's not looking at her. And then you know what happens. Jack has turned into a hideous monster, and we have to shoot all of his glowy eyes. I honestly foresaw this fight giving me problems. I hate this fight even under normal circumstances. It's just super tedious to get through. I kind of figured this was gonna suck hard. I ended up doing a bunch of the flame rounds. One good thing about the flame rounds is that even if they don't take the eye out right away, they'll burn away at it until it finally pops. And I had a hard time avoiding Jack whenever he leapt at or puked on me. I once again used all my heals. But otherwise, it didn't go bad. I wasn't expecting to do it on my first attempt. Again, I was playing on easy, so that certainly helped. I chose to save Mia because she is my beloved, and also because I wanted to avoid that extra fight you get if you don't save her. So now we're playing Mia in the boat! Woohoo! My first impression of this area is, oh god, I'm going to have a problem. Aren't I? It took me ages to get into the boat because I just could not navigate through all this scrap. But once I finally got in, it was fine. It was no worse than the rest of the game. A couple things that I found were kind of funny was like, there were these little blips where Evelyn speaks to you. They aren't considered cutscenes, so the game doesn't force you to turn around to look at them. So I just never saw Evelyn during this part, even though Mia was acting like she could.
What? What are you?
I could see the lights changing, but that was about it. You don't have any weapons at this point, so you're meant to run away from the enemies. But wow, I could not do that. But like, they just kinda didn't hit me. The 4-legged one did once, but it didn't really seem to have done much damage. I guess they decided to have some mercy on you during this part because these guys definitely fucked me up later. It's also kind of funny to watch AI do its thing when you aren't reacting the way the game expects you to. Like in Resident Evil 8, I decided to let the big wolf guy kill me, and the devs were obviously expecting the player to be running away from this thing, so despite me being right in front of it, there were long periods of time where it was just hanging out, not attacking me at all.
Just do it, come on. It's fine. Just do it, kill me. Kill me!
Same thing with these guys. The game was obviously expected me to be running away from them, and the devs knew that you wouldn't have any weapons, so they jump around and whip their bodies around instead of actually mauling you. Or that's just a theory. I don't know how accurate it is. The Mia flashback part was okay. You know, nothing too bad. I did painstakingly go through the effort of going to collect all the bombs I could, because I was worried about the part where you're going to get to the elevator and there's a bunch of moldeds in your way, because they've hella swarmed me before and I was dead if that happened again. But then I easily took them out, so waste of effort, I guess. Although I think Ethan ended up with them later because he had a lot of bombs when I got control of him at the end of the game. Also, you just don't see Evelyn walking around, like, because during this part, you're always seeing her running around or standing off just in the distance, so Mia never got to see her, but will still react like she does anyways.
Evie, wait!
First time you technically see Evelyn in this flashback is when the game whipped me around a couple times for cutscenes, which is a shame because I really wanted to see if this guy would just explode against my back. Also, I found out that you have to do a whole loop here. I thought maybe after the dialogue finished, I'd be able to just leave the room, but nah. Back in the present, I started painfully making my way through the ship. I liked how many platforms I could just step backwards off of and make Mia break her ankles. Makes the backwards run feel more legit than just stepping forward onto a ladder. Also, I knew I should probably go around and collect as many items as I could because they all transferred over to Ethan later, and Ethan was pretty bad off after the Jack fight. I went for the survival knife first because I love it. I went onto the first floor, got the fuse and the gun and the stuff in this room, found I couldn't kill this four-legged bullet for the life of me, so I fled into the elevator and never came back. Also, you can hit X to go into the elevator when you're pretty far from it, and Mia will go forward into the elevator, which is something I did out of desperation, and since this is a move the actual game does, it's, you know, whatever. But if I were to do this again, for some godforsaken reason, I'd get closer to the elevator before doing this. I went to get the machine gun, not really for Ethan, but because Mia needed a little treat. And I was worried about the fat molded on the third floor. I also went through a lot of effort to collect bombs for that purpose too. But then it went down easy after 2 remote bombs that I could easily place and then back away from. Once again, easy mode. The fat molded on the lower floor gave me a lot of problems though, like usually in speedruns I just kinda ran around it, no problem, but that didn't work out this time. I also stubbornly refused to leave these 2 boxes here, so I stood my ground and got vomited on as I broke them open before slowly meandering away with my tail between my legs. Then Mia got whipped around again to look at Ethan.
Ethan.
So back to Ethan's POV, I had saved up my antique coins to get the mag, so hell yeah! Too bad I have, like, no ammo for it. I got the ammo out of the toilet earlier, but that was it. I also equipped the machine gun for the salt mine. Now, the machine gun is a pretty useless weapon on the harder difficulties, but on easy, it's fine. Like, it's not great. The shotgun works a hell of a lot better, but it helps. And I wanted to save my shotgun cells for the final stretch, so I almost exclusively used the machine gun here, and, you know, it was fine. I did use the handgun to take out some of the bombs. Never backed into these either, although it was close at one point. One thing that was annoying is that usually I could just sprint past whatever molded are left here, or else I can run to the minecart fast enough to just run them over. But since I was going so slow, they caught up to me and weren't standing in front of the cart anymore. So I had to fight them. But then that was it. Now we're in the final stretch. Stopped here to get the last steroid. I had so many flame rounds because I saved so much strong chem fluid, I didn't even need the ones the game was giving me. So after slowly wading through the water and listening to Evelyn's little song, we got up into this cave. You're supposed to see Evelyn here at this point, but of course I wasn't looking in that direction, so I did not. This next section is sort of the final boss area for the moldeds. It's the last time you encounter them in the game, and they come at you at full force. I had to do this area over and over and over again when I did Madhouse, so I basically had the whole thing memorized. So I didn't have a lot of issues. I almost entirely used the shotgun here until I got to the 2 fat moldeds. I used another neuro round on one and then started to use enhanced handgun ammo before switching to the mag, which pretty much one-shotted them both. I didn't have to move at all during this part. The only thing left was to go back into the guest house to confront Evelyn. I didn't have to watch one of the little scenes that played out here, but the other one was a cutscene that outwhipped me around to see. So was this conversation with Evelyn. I also couldn't escape Mia here, but that was fine. She wasn't doing much. Then we back ourselves up the stairs, turn into this little hallway here. No problem so far. Then we have to get over to Evelyn, who is whipping some psychic force fields at us. And no joke, the game does not let you move backwards here. Seriously. I tried so hard, but no, you cannot walk over to Evelyn backwards. And I expected this to a certain extent. Moving forward during this part is hard enough. You usually have to sprint forward and then block before she barrels you over. And timing the block would be hard going backwards. I was expecting maybe I'd take 2 steps and then have to turn around to quickly block, which would have been tedious as all hell, but at least it would have been possible. But no, you can't walk backwards towards her at all. I even shot at her. I never tried doing this before, and I was honestly thinking that, hey, you know, maybe she'd get stunned for a second, and I could head towards her, but nah, of course not. It's just not possible to move backwards here. Backwards run over. I tried to salvage this the best I could. I ended up moving horizontally pressed against this wall, which was the closest thing I could get to backwards. But once I got into the back room... Oh my god, he's cured! Yeah, no way around it. Ethan has to go forward to jab Evelyn. Okay, so there's like 2 more minutes of gameplay left, right? Like, I can salvage this. I can end it on a high note. Okay, pretty easy to move backwards during this part. It's actually the smartest move, since you want to be unloading into her as much as humanly possible, while also maintaining as much distance as you can. And then Ethan gets tossed outside, and the Albert gun is lying there, and Chris says to use it, so I thought I'd crawl backwards over to it. And because I tried, I ended up taking too long to reach the gun, and Evelyn ate my leg, and I died for the second time. Great. Complete waste of effort this was. Like, damn, to get me at the very end like that. It's so incredibly frustrating. Well, okay. Everything up to literally the last thing you have to do in the entire game is possible. Like, there were, of course, a handful of other small moments here and there that require a step forward, but all of the combat is possible, nearly all of the navigation is possible, and it didn't even take that long. Yeah, despite how slow I was moving, I still did the backwards run nearly 6 hours faster than I did Madhouse. Although that probably had to do with just the ridiculous amount of times I died and had to restart entire areas because Madhouse limits how many times you can save. But again, part of the reason I was able to do this so fast was because I have basically the whole game memorized. I unfortunately don't have the time of my first ever run through the game, which was played on easy, but I have roughly about 13 hours of footage, and I do remember the time being around then. And my second run, which was on normal, is 12 hours. So I have no doubt in my mind that if I went into this with no idea where anything was, my time probably would have been way, way higher. This also probably had something to do with how low my death count is. You know, first of all, I've said it 12 times, but I'm just gonna reiterate, I did this on easy, so that definitely helps. But I also knew how to do all the fights, and which weapons were most effective, and I knew tricks to straight up avoid potentially deadly situations. Both times where I died were times that I stubbornly tried to go backwards when it just wasn't possible to do so. And unfortunately, one of those times just happened to be one of the last things you do in the entire game. Add that to the Evelyn force field part, and those few instances where you have to take a few steps forward to progress. I'd say something like 98% of Resident Evil 7 can be played backwards, but it cannot be beaten, which is the most unsatisfying way this could have possibly ended. Happy April Fool's Day, y'all. The real joke is how this whole thing turned out. Feel free to like and subscribe, I guess.
I can hear you, but I don't. Some look for trouble, while others don't. There's 1,000 reasons to go about my day. So far, so good.